Welcome back to Compendium Trivia, your one-stop shop for fascinating facts from the world of history and geography. Today, we're exploring a curious case of internationally governed cities. Yes, in the 20th century there were several cases of such cities, which were thrown into a who's your daddy situation. So what were the reasons behind this unusual arrangement? History knows many cities that were autonomous. Think of Athens in ancient Greece, or Italian city-states like Venice or Genoa in medieval times. However, in the 20th century, a new wave of these independent cities emerged, this time placed under international supervision. They were administered by international coalitions, victorious powers, or global institutions. They were meant to avoid conflict, but sometimes they actually provoked it. Let's explore the most intriguing cases of cities under international control. We start with the Free City of Danzig. This political curiosity was created at the end of First World War. After the conflict, Poland regained its independence and was granted access to the Baltic Sea via a narrow strip of land between Germany's main territory and its East Prussia province. However, it didn't get city of Danzig, called Gdańsk in Polish, which historically was its most important port on the Baltic. Instead, Gdańsk became a semi-independent city under the protection of the League of Nations. And if you're wondering, no, the League of Nations wasn't an early version of League of Legends game. It was a prototype of the United Nations, but in reality more like a group chat for empires. Lots of talk, not much action. The Free City of Danzig wasn't just the city itself, it also included surrounding towns and villages, covering almost 2,000 square kilometers. It had its own institutions, currency and even postage stamps. The official language was German, although a usage of Polish was legally guaranteed. Despite its planned neutrality, the city gradually fell under German political influence, and by the late 1930s, it had become a nationalist stronghold. In 1939, Germany used the Danzig question as a pretext to invade Poland and start World War II. After the war, the city became part of Poland. Today, Gdańsk is still the country's most important port, and together with neighboring Sopot and Gdynia, forms the Tri-City metropolitan area. Trieste was another port city in the 20th century that two countries fought over. After World War II, it was contested between Italy and Yugoslavia. You could say it was a standoff between Italian wine lovers and Slavic rakia fans, both sticking to their guns, their spirits, and the city. To avoid open conflict, in 1947 the Free Territory of Trieste was created, a buffer zone under international supervision. It was meant to be governed by a neutral governor. But in practice, no such governor was ever installed. Instead, the territory was split into two zones with very imaginative names. Zone A, including the city itself, was administered by international forces. And Zone B in the countryside was controlled by Yugoslav troops. Elections for the local government were never held, and the division became permanent. Trieste turned into a Cold War frozen conflict, but at least with a warm breeze from the Adriatic Sea. By 1954, with the international plan clearly failing, the two sides reached a quiet deal. Zone A went to Italy, and Zone B remained with Yugoslavia. After Yugoslavia's breakup in the 90s, it was divided between Slovenia and Croatia. Trieste's brief moment as an international city ended, but remnants of its unique past are still visible in the city's architecture and culture. While Trieste earned a mention in a James Bond film From Russia with Love, another city deserved the real title of City of Spies. That city was Tangier, strategically located at the mouth of the Mediterranean on the Moroccan coast of Africa. In the early 20th century, Morocco was divided between French and Spanish colonial zones. Both powers wanted control over Tangier, due to its important position. Meanwhile, Britain hoped for Tangier to be neutral. That would guarantee Britain remained in control of the entrance to the Mediterranean through its port in Gibraltar. A consensus was reached in 1923. Tangier became a neutral international zone, administered jointly by Britain, France, and Spain, with others joining later. In line with British demands, it had no military presence and became a tax haven. Tangier had its own institutions, legal system, and a maze-like bureaucracy. As vague as a solo entrepreneur's LinkedIn bio. For those reasons, Tangier became a magnet for diplomats, criminals, artists, and of course spies. During World War II, the city was called a world capital of espionage. Axis and Allied agents brushed shoulders in cafes, brothels, and bars. Encrypted messages were passed under glasses of liquor. Everyone was watching everyone, trying to outsmart rival agents. Tangier was also a haven for bohemians, artists, and even an early LGBTQ community, suppressed elsewhere at the time. The city also became a money laundering dream, thanks to its offshore status and minimal oversight. All of that came to an end in 1956 when Morocco regained its independence. Tangier was peacefully reintegrated into the country, ending over 3 decades of international rule. The legacy of this intriguing chapter of the city's history lingers in the narrow streets, eclectic architecture, and whispered legends of a time when everyone had something to hide. Asia as well had its own experiment with international supervision, in the city of Shanghai. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, China was weakened by foreign powers during the so-called Century of Humiliation. European countries forced China to open certain ports, including Shanghai, to foreign trade and residents. From the 1840s onward, Britain, the US, and France, soon joined by other nations, carved out extraterritorial zones in Shanghai. No stupid, no extraterrestrials but extraterritorial, meaning that these foreign settlements operated with near total autonomy. Chinese law didn't apply. Foreign nationals had their own police, courts, and regulations. The only things that remained Chinese in these zones were probably the noodles and wonton soup. By the early 20th century, Shanghai was a unique cosmopolitan hub. British gentlemen's clubs stood near Russian Orthodox churches. American businessmen thrived alongside Japanese bankers and Indian merchants. All of them were served by dollar-thirsty courtesans from all over the world, who made Dubai's gold diggers look like they were Christian housewives at a Sunday tea party. In the 1930s, Shanghai was a buzzing melting pot. It was a financial center but also an entertainment capital and a haven for organized crime. These dodgy vibes earned it the very subtle and descriptive nickname, the Whore of the Orient. Interestingly, the city also became a safe haven for Jewish refugees fleeing war-torn Europe, one of the few places they could enter without a visa. Let's just say that Shanghai's immigration officers didn't care what papers you had, as long as you brought foreign currency. The days of this fascinating bubble came to an end when Japan invaded China. In 1941, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese officially shut down international settlements in the city. Still, the legacy of Shanghai's international era lives on in the Bunds District colonial architecture and the city's enduring identity as a financial center of Eastern Asia. No discussion of internationally governed cities is complete without West Berlin. After World War II, Germany and Berlin were divided into 4 zones, controlled by the Soviets, Americans, British, and French. The Soviet sector became East Berlin, capital of East Germany, a Soviet satellite state. Meanwhile, the western sectors merged into West Berlin, a capitalist enclave deep inside communist territory. West Berlin was not technically part of West Germany, though politically aligned with it. The city was governed locally, but with final authority in the hands of the Western Allies. It was also exempt from military conscription, making it a magnet for artists and pacifists, who helped lay the foundations of Berlin's famous alternative scene. When tensions escalated, in 1961 the Berlin Wall was built, sealing West Berlin off from its eastern counterpart. The scar on the face of the city became permanent, a symbol of the Iron Curtain dividing Europe. In 1963, West Berlin was visited by President John F. Kennedy, whose famous words, "Ich bin ein Berliner," became a statement of unity of a democratic bloc. By the 1980s, West Berlin was the European cultural capital, vibrant, rebellious, and weird in the best way. However, by that time, the Eastern Bloc was crumbling. In 1989, the Berlin Wall finally fell and the city became whole once again. 1 year later, Germany reunified, and their football fans could finally root for just one team. Cities under international supervision were bold experiments. You can call them idealistic efforts to create neutral zones in a divided world. In some cases, they aimed to prevent war. In others, they sought to manage post-war transitions or ethnic tensions. But none of these international cities truly succeeded. Despite good intentions, they stumbled from the beginning, riddled with corruption and competing interests. They continued to be politically unstable, troubled with clashing authorities and weak enforcement. Today, no major city is under full international governance. But the legacy of those cities that experienced this unique chapter of history still lives on. It shows in architecture filled with international influences, hybrid legal systems, and the ongoing chess game of power that continues to shape global politics. Thanks for watching this episode of Compendium Trivia. If you enjoyed this journey to internationally governed cities, leave a like, subscribe and turn the notification bell on. Don't forget to tell us in a comment, which of these cities would you visit if you had a chance? We've got more mysteries from around the world coming soon. Let us know which one would you like us to cover next.